Questions like, why are we here? What happens when you die? Where did we come from? And is there a God?
The U.S. government has been shown to have had a long-term interest in Scientology.
This is a practical question here.
I know this is an illusion, or dream, or call it the way you want to call, you know?
We are a bigger threat to the people who are secretly trying to control this planet than any other group on this planet.
But the problem with an atheist is he believes that his belief is based on fact.
Oh, it's wireless. Yeah, you got wireless one.
He's impressive. He's a powerful guy.
I can't make this shit up.
The leaders of this are not just after our church, they're after the whole of this planet.
He was put here to work out his own salvation. And we feel in Scientology that we've made a very big stride in that direction.
Howdy everybody, and welcome to the Indie Scientology podcast. I'm your host, Andy Nolch, the Space Cowboy, and isn't it lovely to be here listening to the good old Strauss. This is the podcast that has everything to do with the interesting world of Scientology. Yes, that odd religion you might have heard about in the mainstream media. If you don't know what Scientology is, then I will tell you. It's a bunch of self-help books and exercises that evolved into a religion created by American sci-fi author L. Ron Hubbard in the 1950s. A lot of people think they know what Scientology is, but they don't know. Why? Because they were told by the fake news media. Today's guest interview is with Trey Lotz. You're going to like it. He's a good auditor. It's part 1. And how did you like the last show with Maddie Rose? It was a bit different. It didn't really have much to do with Scientology. It kind of backfired for me. But at least it was interesting to interview someone on different stuff. And I think it's important to hear this political stuff because it's your world. Oh, now it's time for us to go down that rabbit hole into the interesting world of Scientology, where up is down and down is up, where left is right and right is left, where what you thought was impossible is possible. Welcome to the show on this 19th of March 2019. Kind of funky. There's a lot of 19s. There's something on my mind, and it's the movie Donnie Darko. Oh my God. If you haven't seen it, you've got to see it. It's just so deep. I've rewatched it again because, I watched it when I was like 16 or something, and it's a fairly deep show and a fairly deep movie, and it's hard to follow along with. It's one of those ones where you need to watch it again. It's got a bit of time travel stuff in it. But now that I understand about multiple universes and time travel, I can follow along with the story a lot more. And I don't think I fully know what the hell was going on with the story, right? Well, actually, I think I sort of do, but also, I think it's also designed to almost be an enigma, I think is the word, where you don't really understand it, so you're like, whoa. But it's just got great music in it, and it's just a great piece of artwork. And if you don't know anything about other dimensions and time travel and spirituality and stuff, then you just think it's, I guess, interesting fiction. But people to Scientologists and people who know about this sort of stuff, I mean, the movie's like, whoa, no, this is true stuff. You know what I mean? Like, he talks to like a rabbit in the story, for example. I mean, that's just like an analogy for talking to God or talking to a spirit outside this dimension and stuff. I mean, this stuff happens. I mean, how it was happening to Philip K. Dick. You know, Philip K. Dick had a spirit, a Satan, take over his body and write books for him. he says, he goes, I didn't write these books. He goes, I didn't write it. He goes, someone else was in control of my body, and he was like channeling, and he was like typing the book. So just wild stuff goes on, but the movie is just so deep, and it's written by a person who I would get along with very well. Like, I can tell I got a lot of shared reality with, because I'm sure he must have some funky experiences or something to have written that movie. It's a great piece of artwork. It sort of reminds you of it with some of these Hollywood movies, how it's just like there are so many that are terrible, and then just odd ones pop up that are just like these beautiful pieces of art, and you're like, oh, now I get why people watch movies. You know what I mean? Usually there's an element of empowerment in the movie, like it audits the person who's watching it, you know, and it inspires them and it gets them thinking and it educates them. They're actually all the good movies. And the bad ones are the ones that do all the opposite and degrade you and propagandize you and all that sort of stuff. Total Recall is another really awesome movie. Anyway, when I watched Donnie Darko when I was 16, you know, I kind of went to a private school like the one in the movie. And I would say I had case problems at that time as well. When a lot of the time case problems are not really case problems, they're not having enough data problems, not understanding the truth of this universe, not functioning, having problems functioning in the matrix because you can't handle the lies. Anyway, I was sort of having case problems, and the main character was sort of having case problems. The main character was like 16 years old in that movie. I mean, I was 16 when I watched it, I think. And it's just like the similarities are like, whoa. And the girl who's with in the movie is very nice looking. And so again, like when I first watched it, my friend said, you're going to really like this movie. Or he said, oh, this is really good, you got to watch this. And he'd recommended to me watching The Butterfly Effect or something. And I watched that, and I never got into it. I just couldn't connect with it. I just didn't like the butterfly effect or something. So he goes, you're going to watch Donnie Darko, blah, blah, blah. I think I thought, oh, is it going to be like a butterfly effect or something? Anyway, I watched it, and it was just like, whoa, what the hell did I just watch? You know, it's just like, whoa. You know, the movie ends, and it's one of those movies where it ends and the credits come up, but you don't just walk off. I mean, you let the credits roll and you listen to the music and you're like, just like, what the hell did I just watch? It was just like, whoa. And now that I've watched it again, I can understand why I was so struck by it and so amazed by it and stuff, because of the deepness of it. I think it depicts life. It's deep. Anyway, I don't want to go on too much, but it's just like, if you haven't seen Donnie Darko, you've got to see Donnie Darko. Alright, it's now time for an independent Scientology success story. This is an OT8 success story from one of Trey Lotz's PCs. So Trey delivers OT8, and we talk about that during the interview. But that might be in part 2, which I'll post in a week's time or whatever. Okay, so it says this. The wins I've had on this level were beyond anything I imagined. I initially had some ideas of what I would gain, what possible changes that would happen. But it soon became clear to me that I was wrong. It's funny, how can I predict what I will understand in the future? Sorry, it's funny. How can I predict what I will understand? Sorry, I'm actually mentally distracted by Donnie Darko. I mean, that movie just hits me like, whoa. The same as maybe even more so than Radio Free Albemuth. Radio Free Albemuth. It's a movie based on a Philip K. Dick book, but that movie is just like, whoa. But this one's even more so. It really stimulates my case-wise. It's almost like auditing me watching that movie. And I think that's why at the end of it, it's like, whoa, I've got to think with that. But it's just like, you know, I know that there are parallel universes going on, and the Mandela effect proves it. You know, if you take someone, right, and they remember the Ford logo being always the squiggly line in the middle of the F, I don't remember it having squiggly line in the F. That means that 10 years ago, when it used to be the straight line, I was communicating to a different version of that person who says it's always been a squiggly line. Do you get what I mean? Like, I've changed into a different parallel universe or whatever, and I'm talking to a different version. So it's possible that there is parallel universes with me in them, doing other things. And you're in other parallel universes as well, doing other things. You're just compartmentalized and closed off, so you're not aware. But maybe when you get deja vu or something, you're going, whoa. You're starting to tap into memories from the other version of you in the other parallel universe. And also, I think it's possible that time travel is possible, and that you can visit yourself. So as an old man, I could chat to Andy right now. It's wild, this idea of one Satan, but also you're like occupying other bodies and doing other things in other times and other universes. It's just so deep. It's just because there's a part of Melbourne where I've been to where I felt like I've had a parallel where in another universe I've had an existence, and another part of Melbourne as well where I think I've had another existence. It's just interesting, you know, you go into that area and you're like, well, this is what I was like. And I was like, I don't know, it just sort of sparked off maybe memories, or it just felt like sparked off an existence in this, and the one area it was like, you know, I went to school here, and I got into being a DJ, and because I was into music years ago and stuff. Like I can create music in that, and so obviously in that other parallel universe or whatever, I got into the music thing, and I had this family, and this other area of Melbourne. It's just really close to where I live now. Anyway, that was just like where my family chose a different house to live in. So that parallel universe, there wasn't much difference at all. It was just like my parents chose to live in a different suburb, basically. So I think that in that universe I've probably gone to Scientology and stuff as well. But it's just so out there, but it's just like I know that there's some truth to this stuff, and scientists talk about parallel universes. Anyway, really wild, the truth. Anyway, I'll continue. Sorry if we can go on off, but it's just that movie, Donnie Darko, what the hell. Okay. It's funny. How can I predict what I will understand in the future? Sorry. It's funny. How can I predict what I will understand in the future that I now don't understand? I didn't realize that just the fact that I thought I understood what I would come to understand is a false idea. If I would understand now what I would later understand, I would understand it now, wouldn't I? So there is no way I could know what I will understand before I understand it. I apologize for that paragraph. I don't know how to explain that in an easier way at the moment. I get what he's saying in that, and that's great. He's totally right. I mean, when you go in there and you do Scientology, you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen to you and where you're going to go. I mean, I would never have thought I would be where I'm at the moment. It's not possible. Because you don't know what you don't know. And it's like, okay, you can get an idea of what it's like to go clear and say, okay, so I'll feel good and stuff. But really, you don't know what it's like to go clear, because if you knew what it was like, then you would be clear. Do you know what I mean? So he's making a really good point here. It's so true. It's like you have absolutely no idea what you just don't know what to expect. And I didn't know either. Like I just had no idea. But you got to just do it yourself and see what happens to you. One thing I do seem to be able to tell from Scientology, what I get overall is I get smarter. I think that's the thing that I can lock down, because the end result of anything, if you, access past life memories, or if you feel really, really good, the side effect of all those things, a lot of them tend to be that you're just smarter, like you're just better, like you just know more and stuff, right? And so that's why with anything I do in Scientology, I bet you, when I go clear, when I do OTA, I'll just be smarter. I'll just be that bit smarter. I'll know more about this game and stuff. That's what I bet you I'll get. But there might be some where I feel really, really good or something, and I don't really have an increase in smartness. I just feel really, really good. And that's possible. But if I feel really, really good, I feel like then I could do other things better really, really good, because I'm feeling really, really good. And I just feel the smartness will come with it. But overall, I just remember, because I got into Scientology at the start to get to clear. I was just like, whoa, I was sold on clear. I was like, clear's cool, But what I kept on getting was just more knowledge and smartness, just more knowledge, more smartness, more awareness, and awareness is smartness. So the whole bridge, you just get more and more aware. That's just smarter. You just know more of what's going on. So anyway, that's my best guess, is I'll just lock in smartness for probably everything. But yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. You just don't know. But one thing I'm certain of now, which is great, and what I see everywhere, like with people like Joe Rogan, for example, the problem with humans and like Joe Rogan is that they think they know. They haven't come to the point that I think Socrates got to, where you realize that you don't know nothing, like you don't know anything. Like when you realize really that we have absolutely no idea what is the truth about life and our existence here on Earth. Like, that's one thing that I've realized in these past few years when I've really become enlightened, is I just have no idea. Like, the truth is so deep. Personally, I think it's some sort of computer game recording and it's playing out. And it's really complex how it works. But just the thing, like people like Joe Rogan, they just assume that they think they know about this and they think they know, and it's just like, Joe, you don't get it. Us humans here on Earth have absolutely no idea of what is really going on. It's so freaking deep and complex, it'll blow your mind. So just stop getting sucked into thinking you know. And like I said earlier at the start of this podcast, people think they know what Scientology is, and it's just like, no. You think you know all these things, but the truth is you don't know. There's so much you don't know. You know of, you've heard of, but you don't actually know anything about. It's just so deep, the truth. Anyway, I'll continue with success story. But great paragraph, he said. Anyway, before doing OT8, I believed that I had very little left to improve within myself. After OT8, I see it in another way. The more I improve, the more potential improvement I see within myself. I now feel like I'm capable of seeing the areas in which I can improve and improve them, rather than blaming something else. It is an amazing feeling to realize that there is no end to improvement, even in the things I believed myself to be spectacular at. Haha, there is no end. That may seem discouraging to some, I understand that. I felt it myself at times. But the thing called life is not meant to have a top nor a bottom. Take a mathematical example. You can write an almost endless amount of zeros and have an almost infinite amount of zeros, but you can always put another zero down. one more zero. And so you can always improve one step at a time. This cog may be mixed with my studies while I was doing OT8. Either way, they both were a benefit in reaching this level of understanding. I now perceive an incredible beauty, no effort, and a sense of everything being just okay the way they are in everything around me. My sense of what is... Sorry, I'm going to read that again. Hold on. I now perceive an incredible beauty, no effort, and a sense of everything being just okay the way they are in everything around me. My sense of what is wrong or right has changed. The deepest understanding of right and wrong I realized was that nobody is absolutely wrong and nobody is absolutely right. There is no such thing. I found that if I just tried to look at how some people are right in the things they do, I can find something I can understand in it. I would before just disregard it and say they are wrong and move on. The amount of understanding and love for life I have gained in finding beauty and understanding in things I before believed were absolutely wrong has already blown me away. I understand a bit what he's talking about here, because I noticed that with evil, I'm just a little bit suspicious that it's necessary for growth. That sounds wild. But it's just like that, like an example with, a boxing trainer. He throws punches at the kid who's learning how to box, and then the kid throws punches back, and then just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows, and then can beat up the trainer, and then it wins, and it's like, ah! But what if you're just there and there's no SPs throwing punches at you? Are you going to grow? I don't know. I think it all might be trial and error. And that adversity is the game. And coming through the problems and difficulties and learning from them is the game. Because if I took out bad experiences from my past, I just wouldn't be who I am today, and I wouldn't have all this knowledge. And I think that's something you've always got to remember. It's okay. This is just what needs to happen. In the end, it's going to be all right. I think they're really good things that people need to hear. This is a challenge that you need to overcome. I don't know. I'm looking forward to life more than I did before. There are avenues I didn't think to look into that are now wide open with happiness and understandings I'm now open to see. I usually thank Ron and Trey for the help they have given me in this. It brings tears to my eyes to look back and see how much both of them have helped me and other people on this planet. Magnificent men, both of them. This time I want to include a thank you to everyone that is working towards a better world, no matter how you choose to manifest it. People at Trey's house, outside of it and over the internet, I really appreciate what you do. Thank you all, Jerry Torneedle. Wow. Great success story, Jerry, and you've definitely inspired me to get up to OT8, and hopefully you'll help me to understand the truth about reality and existence and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's all about learning. It's all about, it's philosophy, I guess. Anyway, it's now time for post of the week. Actually, no, sorry. Speaking to Trey Lotz about OT8 was cool, and reading this success story about OT8 is good, because I was kind of concerned about the condition of OT8 in the independent field. That, concerned that it doesn't exist or something, or I couldn't get it, but now I've been inspired to just get in there and go do it, and that it does exist. Okay, post of the week. This is from Scott Gordon, and it's got a pic. Okay, it's got a pic about. He posted these words, right, with a pic about statistics being banned by Facebook, and it was called spam on Facebook or something. And so I mean, you can't see the pic, but some sort of pic, and it's got statistics on it, and Facebook classified it as spam, and I think he's complaining about that. But this is interesting. It's a bit of conspiracy and drama, so this is a cool post. And he says, knowledge report, Facebook and Google. Oh, so he's doing a knowledge report on Facebook and Google, so maybe he's going to tell us some good stuff about what Facebook and Google, like the bad stuff that Facebook and Google are doing. Okay, it says number 1, surveillance. I dropped some hints in a couple of private chats that I was working on an article about the current state of Scientology, which would once again expose the active ringleaders of the suppression, destroying the name and the subject, and worst of all, they're ultimately destroying the prospects of anyone helping people with auditing without being accused of brainwashing. So I want to read that sentence again. I dropped some hints in a couple of private chats that I was working on an article about the current state of Scientology, which would once again expose the active ringleaders of the suppression, destroying the name and the subject, and worst of all, they're ultimately destroying the prospects of anyone helping people with auditing without being accused of brainwashing. Preemptive violence. Violation of my non-violent communication without prior investigation. So this is a bit of a wordy post. I mean, let's just run with it. Okay. Number 2, preemptive violence. Violation of my non-violent communication without prior investigation. Apparently thinking I was going to release this article any moment, exposing their best operatives. The preemptive order to stop my post was erroneously executed on this weekly auditing to statistics post you can see in the attached photo. The post was allowed only after it was reviewed, but they would not admit that to me. This screenshot is taken hours after they let it post. Censorship. A friend also reported to me from mainland China that Google has all of my websites blocked. FreeScientology.us, FreeScientologyCenter.org, FreeScientology.tech. Mainland China has them blocked. Well, so I guess it doesn't surprise me because I don't want any freedom of thought in China. Anyway, harassment. Number 4, harassment. The reason I have contemplated releasing the article that I currently hold in abeyance, we've got to look that up. It just means in suspension. Is that I have endured episodes of low-level electronic harassment of the nature which cannot be coming from OSA, tailing me on the interstate by an apprentice operative, personal attacks from the adherents of operatives named in my draft article, third-party induced shunning, preemptive blocking/banning, including Facebook throttling of posts made for my personal safety in 2017. Takeover attempts on 2 Facebook groups, one succeeded recently, and third-party efforts to persuade friends to disconnect from me and cancel their plans for auditing and cost him his job. All right. Wow. There's a lot to this post, but it's entertaining, so let's get into it. Then he says, special thanks to Andy Nolch for his bravery in interviewing me 3 times. By the way, just talking to someone to auditing them, like I said with watching a Donnie Darko, that's some sort of form of auditing. And I watched it 2 times in the past few days because I was like, I've got to watch this again and follow along with it because it's having such an impact on me. It's just like, whoa. And I think when I was 16, when I watched it, I just was like, what the hell was that? And I think it was because it was some other guy on the other side of the world who made this movie. And maybe he was experiencing this sort of stuff when he was 16 or something, because he was like 30 when he made the movie. Hey, it's like the age I am now. Interesting. Synchronicities. They just happen to me all the time, right? And I'm interested in movies and movie making and that. Anyway, so it's like he got me to watch my own existence. You know what I mean? And that's some form of auditing. You know, like if you get someone in Dianetics to go over an incident from when they were 2 years old, you're taking out time to stop, to analyze and have a look at something in your life. Well, that's what this movie is doing. You're stopping, you're watching it, and because my life, I imagine, sort of matched up a bit to his life, then I was looking at my life again, and it was some form of auditing because I was viewing it again. And this also, I noticed, happens a lot with acting. And that's why I find acting kind of funny, because I found acting just ruined real life for me. Because when you watch, because I was involved with acting, so when you watch, I guess, 2 people having an argument, and you recreate it by acting, right? You as an actor recreating that, somehow you're as-ising arguments with people. And it just allows you to see reality and makes you go, whoa. Like, let's say you got like some guy who's a sex addict, right, and he goes to prostitutes all the time. Get him to be an actor and get him to recreate being a character going to the prostitutes because he's a sex addict. And I'm telling you, he'll have some realizations because he'll be like, wow, this is just embarrassing. Like, I'm like this. Like, I'm like this crazy sex pervert. It's like, yeah, I gotta go to the prostitute and, yeah, here's the money. And like, not to make fun of someone who's addicted to going to prostitutes. I'm just thinking about someone who I knew from Melbourne who was in that situation. But like, I think that person can't see how silly it is. And if they could do acting, then they could look at it, the recreation of it. And I bet you there's processes you do in Scientology that are exactly this, getting you to recreate. I think there's an injective process where L. Ron Hubbard gets you to recreate some sort of aberration. So he goes like, spot an aberration, recreate it or whatever, or something like that. I remember doing it, I think, on the SRD. Anyway, it's a key out because it's just like you just look at it and you're like, whoa, that looks so stupid. So, like, I'm sure that the dude who goes to prostitutes a lot, if he actually had to act it out doing that in some TV commercial or something, he would just be like, whoa, this is embarrassing, and it would really change his behavior. Anyway, so I found that my involvement with acting, like, it just sort of messed up the Matrix for me a bit and mainstream life, because I just can't take things seriously, and just because I view it all as like a silly episode of Bold and the Beautiful. It's like it's all just Bold and Beautiful for me. Like, it's just like, anyway, it's just interesting. But yeah, so I think songs, I think movies can be forms of auditing, and interviews. They're all some form of auditing. Anyway, I'll continue. Special thanks to Andy Nolch for his bravery in interviewing me 3 times and taking his own harassment from this operation. The information is in my interview. However, an article of the nature I have composed is apparently more, all in one place and with new evidence than they want revealed. Another interviewer gave up crying in terror when they took over control of her computer remotely while we were rehearsing for her first show. It would have reached a whole new group of the freedom, truth, justice movements, but it never came out. Interesting. I had that happen to me recently, actually, where I saw my mouse move when I wasn't using the computer, so they didn't think I was using the computer. I caught them. I caught them moving something. Like, I didn't get... They stopped. I just saw them move the mouse a little bit somewhere and do something, but then it stopped. And then I was like, I should have actually not touched the computer. I should have just watched it for ages to see if they come back to it. But I caught them, little shifty buggers. Anyway, so obviously Scott was going to do... He was going to do another interview, but somebody couldn't handle the remote control stuff taking over the computer. These things just happen. It's what you have to put up with. There's nothing to be too concerned about. There's much worse stuff that can be happening. Like, also, if they wanted to, could just destroy me if they wanted to. You know. I mean, I'm sure they can hack into anything they want to hack into, and they can just destroy me, you know. But what I think they tend to do is they tend to put a block on the YouTube channel or something, or maybe the podcast, where you click on it and it just doesn't work. That's what they do. And to be honest, that's probably what, from their point of view, that's a successful action. I mean, that's what you should do. Why would you bother taking over my computer or doing anything when all you need to do is just make it so that people can't click on the YouTube channel? I mean, that's what you do. I mean, that's the way to handle the problem. You know, if they just delete my channel, then it might encourage me to fight more or something. The best thing to do is to just block it as much as possible. So, like, to block it as far as you can go before I actually do something about it. Do you know what I mean? You got to be clever with these things. Anyway, I'll continue. All I am looking for is the right to promote and practice auditing for the purpose of helping others improve their lives. This includes the right to expose those who are deliberately not being truthful about Scientology, its true history and actual connections, and what auditing actually is and does for people. This is true Scott Gordon, Watchful Navigator. watchfulnavigator.wordpress.com. Cool post, Scott. I mean, it wasn't written in a way that's easy to read, and I do a similar thing, I think, with my stuff. And maybe that's probably because I've been keyed out a fair bit, so I just don't care. I mean, sometimes I even go to write posts on Facebook, like comments, and I just can't be bothered answering the comment properly, and I just give like a lazy answer. And I know that like the person probably won't even really understand what I've answered, but it's just like, I can't be stuffed answering your question. Sorry. You know what I mean? Like that. I think that's one of the side effects of Clear. You just get to the point where you just don't take the Matrix seriously at all. And when I mentioned this earlier, when I had a moment a while ago where I felt like I left this existence, and I think it might be when I actually detached from my bank and I got to experience temporarily what being clear was like. If I gain that state permanently, you just be worried, because I mean, I just don't know if I'll bother taking anything seriously. I don't know if I'll bother brushing my teeth. I don't know if I'll just drive and just be like, you know what, I can just drive off the cliff. I'll just drive off the cliff. Like, who cares? Like seriously, that's what, like, when you get all your fears, all your concerns, when you really literally view this Matrix as just like a PlayStation game and you can just switch it on and off and you just don't care, you really, really don't care. It feels absolutely great, right? It feels really, really good. But, my God, you're not going to write. She's not going to worry about spelling mistakes on a Facebook post. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's going to go to like, I'm going to have to adjust. I'm going to have to be like, no, hold on. Okay, I've chosen this mission. I've chosen to be in the Matrix and shit. I'm going to have to, brush my teeth and adapt to being clear or whatever. But seriously, I could just drive off a cliff. Like, I just don't care. This reality just is nothing. It's just a literal computer game. I'm just a character in this computer game. I mean, they had that recent Christchurch shooting, for example. All right? I mean, I watched the footage of that. I didn't care. It's not because I'm like cruel and stuff and I wanted the Muslims to die or anything like that. I mean, seriously, I just didn't care. I was just like, okay, like this is like it looked like a computer game. The guy was going into the mosque and it full on looks like a computer game. It's like bang, 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 bang. Right. And that could be because it was a setup. Don't rule that out. That could have been intelligence operative or intelligence op. The whole thing could have been a setup. Right. But let's say it is real, right? I just don't care. I don't care if some Muslim guy comes in and shoots me. I don't care if Osa takes me out. Like I haven't even achieved clear yet, but like seriously, like, the more I go along, it's just like, who cares if someone dies? I mean, they just drop the body. I mean, even if there is no reincarnation, even if you don't wake up outside the Matrix and you go into some other parallel universe or some other existence or something. Even if it literally is the end, that's it. You die, that's it. It's gone. When your grandma's dead, she is dead. Even if that's the case, I still don't care at all. It's just like, she's here, she's gone. I'm here, I'm gone. Who cares? Do you know what I mean? Like, why? People just take death so seriously. And part of it, I'm sure, is that the SPs and the media keep on scaring people and saying, death is serious, be worried, all this stuff. Anyway, oh my God, sorry, I'm going on. But these are things that people really need to know. Like, it's just like, just chillax. Like, things don't matter that much. And I think that's why I can be a brutal enemy, a brutal person to contend with from Osa's point of view, in that I really am a nutcase. Like, I don't care. You can't touch me. I'm untouchable. And this is what they really hate, because they can't control me with fear. They can't, be like, make me worried and go, oh, I'm going to lose this. It's just like, I don't mind. Bring it on. Anyway, it's now time for a Scientology joke. All right. 3 Scientologists took a small plane to the wilderness in northern Canada to hunt moose over a weekend. The pilot said, "Please remember that this is a very small plane. You can only bring back 1 moose between you." But of course, each Scientologist killed their own moose, and come Sunday they told the pilot that last year they each brought their own moose on the plane. The pilot agreed to let them take all 3 dead moose home. Just after takeoff, the plane stalled and crashed. In the wreckage, one of the Scientologists woke up, looked around and said, "Where the hell are we?" "Oh, about 100 yards east of the place where we crashed last year," replied one of the Scientologists. So funny. Yeah, and so I reckon that, that is it. That is how you become a brutal fighter. A brutal force to combat with. If you're here in this Matrix and you don't care about dying, you are untouchable. That's what's really, really difficult, It's like a court case. Someone's coming after you, like someone wants to sue you or something for money, and it's like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Or I don't have any money. What are you going to do? Like the guy's like, oh shit, he's got no money. Oh, I can't come after him. You know what I mean? Like it just screws up the whole thing. You know, if you don't care. Anyway, it's now time for today's guest interview with Trey Lotz. It's part 1. It's about an hour and a half because we did a long 3-hour interview, and so I'll post the other half in a few weeks. I can't quite remember what we discussed. Oh, in the first half, we discussed a fair bit of stuff to do with auditing, becoming an auditor, missions, prices, a little bit about what things were like in the 70s, a little bit about church schooling stuff. It's quite a good PR interview, actually, because it's not too out there and funky. So anyway, let's dig into this. Chuck on a pot of tea and let's hear some talk about the world's most interesting and controversial religion, Scientology.
After all, we haven't been invited, and curiosity often leads to trouble. Goodbye, Dinah. Goodbye.
Today's guest interview is with independent Scientologist Trey Lotz. He has been a full-time professional auditor for about 50 years. Trey discovered Scientology in 1968 and within 2 years became a Class 8 auditor. Over the subsequent decades, he did many tech courses, including 3 internships at Flag, 2 of them under LAH on the ship. Case-wise, Trey did a very thorough bridge, completing everything up to OT8, including all 3 Ls. Trey has had a very successful field practice since 1970, a practice which had the best auditing statistics of any field practiced in Scientology history. He cut all ties to the church in 2007 and has been auditing independently since. He has trained in the independent field on all upper-level rundowns and can deliver any audited action from a person's first auditing in Scientology all the way up to the most advanced rundowns, including the Ls. He was featured in the excellent Reza Aslan show Believer, which actually showed him auditing someone and reasonably explained what Scientology is, thus making it not an attack piece, which is just amazing because the mainstream media always does biased attack pieces on Scientology. Mr. Trey Lotz, are you there?
Very good. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. All right. Great. So you are there.
Yeah.
All right. I know you're there, but I just say it. It's just part of the thing.
Okay.
What are you doing with yourself these days? You're auditing people?
Yeah, it's been very, very busy. I've had a lot of people in from out of the country and out of town. Just last week, I had somebody here from England getting L10. We finished L10. I had a guy here from Sweden who we finished OT8 and a tailored rundown. Another girl from Panama who's OT8 and finished a tailored rundown on her. And another fellow from Puerto Rico was here. And now I've got another guy from Ohio and another guy from Puerto Rico. So it's been quite busy.
All right. Awesome. And you deliver standard tech. So does that mean that you you have a cutoff around 1980 or something with HCOBs?
No, I think that there's a little bit of a confusion about what standard means. In the Class 8 course, he talks about standard being following the basics, auditing per the basics, and the basics being the auditor's code, metering. What you're going to audit will vary from PC to PC. And at lower levels, people get confused between being rote and being standard. A rote auditor, does things rotely. A standard auditor will audit, every session will be different, but you're never going to be violating basic auditing. You're never going to be violating the auditor's code or basic principles of the tech. So I wouldn't say that it has to do specifically with published rundowns. I audit Superpower, for example, and 5 of those rundowns were finished and issued in HCOB form, and several of them were left in outline form. So there's an outline of what's supposed to be being audited, for example. And so what you can do is you can take the subject matter of the rundown and apply basic auditing procedures to it, like prep checks, two-way comms. If somebody's able to do it, you add in listing and nulling questions. What's interesting about auditing is that, the golden age of tech was designed for class 4 auditors to teach them how to audit one particular thing and audit it well. Like Ellery said, on introductory auditing, you're better off teaching the guy one process and teaching it well than teaching him 10 processes kind of half-assed. And that was the basic principle of the golden age of tech for up through class 4 or grad 5, is you would just have one way to do it and you would learn how to do it that way. At class 6, you learn there's a lot of different ways of approaching any particular situation. And at that level, your judgment comes into it more than at class 4. And then by the time you're class 8, you're supposed to be auditing according to the basics. You can audit by, always talks auditing by definition. There's a definition of a word. You ask the person about it, clarify it, get data regarding that particular word, and you get things to run. Then when you get up to class 10, it's the guy who taught me how to audit said the L's auditing is finding items to run and running items. There are a lot of different ways of finding items to run, and then you run those items. So how you run those items, how much you run them, up to what point you run them, how long you run them. That's all the judgment point. So at class 10, it's much more judgment involved in present time in the session itself. Like you're creating listing and nulling questions based on the person's reading areas that you ask him a two-way comm question. He gives you a reading area and you formulate a listing and nulling question to specifically address that area. And there's many ways you can formulate a listing and nulling question, so you have to pick the right one. So in some sense, it's more creative, but it's really just using your judgment and applying the basics standardly to audit the specific case that you're trying to handle.
So you basically go with knowing as much as you can, being smart as possible, knowing what works, looking at the tech, and even if it says revised in 1992, if it's still working and you're okay and with it, then you're fine with using something like that.
Well, like for example, when I do a clear check, I'll use the Dianetic Clear Special Intensive rather than the CCRD because I think that's simpler and more to the point. If commands were revised in 1992, it depends on it. Exactly. It depends if it makes sense or not. Some of the things that have come out, it's really not as much of a question as the tech is wrong or the new tech is wrong. It's what's really occurred is a huge reinterpretation of the tech and a huge change in emphasis about what is run. Like in the church, for example, what used to be 5 to 10% of the tech, which is overts and withholds, and now that's like 85% of the tech. So there's a huge reinterpretation of the importance of overts and withholds compared to other areas of tech.
Absolutely. HCO's ethics section have expanded quite a bit. So what about, let's say, with GAT2? Then, are you interested in finding out what happened with that tech, and reading it, and then working out if you want to use it in session or something, or is there just, there's no new tech in that, so it's like, why even look at GAT2 stuff?
Well, those are mostly trying to teach people how to audit. They're trying to simplify the instructions, and I went through all that in the 70s. So the Golden Age of Tech 2 came out after I'd already left. So I'm not really even that familiar with what they're doing in terms of, reducing the number of processes that you run on the grades, for example, and the order in which you run them. The thing is, it was always true that you ran a grade until the guy got the EP. Didn't matter if there was 50 questions or 15 questions or processes on the grade sheet. If you had 50 processes and the guy EP'd after 14 of them, you would call the EP and go on to the next grade. So they're trying to, I guess what you're talking about is, trying to, I think, with a lot of things that the church is doing, you have to ask yourself, what problem are they trying to solve? And the problem that the Golden Age of Tech was trying to solve was the fact that trained auditors weren't auditing. I remember a big survey was done in the late 80s, and something like 95% of all people that finished internships never audited again.
How come?
Exactly. That was the problem they were trying to solve. He says, well, maybe they weren't really fully grooved in on the basics,
No, but wouldn't they be able to tell from the statistics, like this person, like were the people blowing, or what was going on? Were they just people just getting trained and they just weren't auditing after they were getting trained?
Well, yeah, but the reasons were individual, I'm sure. I mean, a lot of people get trained because they, quote, want to understand the tech. They don't really have the intention of auditing other people. Also, it's not that easy. I mean, if you've got a family, well, where are you going to audit? You're going to start a field practice. Well, you could do that. It takes a while to build it up. You're not going to make much money at it, really, unless you do build it up, and that will take quite a while. You're going to audit in a mission or an org. You're not going to make enough to support yourself or a family. So in a way, you have to be. It appeals to a certain niche of people that can do it logistically with the rest of their life, how it fits in with the rest of their life.
Well, what it seems like is that the local orgs, I mean, they don't want all these field auditors taking their PCs. So it sort of seems like if someone gets trained up in their local org, can audit, it's just like they're going to receive some sort of suppression that stops them from auditing people because the org will want those PCs.
Well, that's very true. Very true. I mean, being in LA, you've got 6 other orgs around. I was like right in. I've had a field practice in Los Angeles since 1970, and so it used to be that the orgs didn't have enough personnel to really chase people around. So we would get, in the field, we would get calls maybe twice a year from the orgs, or once they implemented iHelp, you get a couple of calls a year, renew your membership, how you doing. Other than that, you never really got interfered with until around 2002, 2003. Then you started having more people on, and then you started getting weekly calls and, selling books and, right, and doing this and doing that. And it was like, it started to become very oppressive. And you're right. The intention was always, like if you're from the Buffalo org, for example, and they train you up and you say, yeah, I'm going to go start a field practice here in Buffalo. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of suppression on that. But if you come to LA from another area, for example, and start a field practice, they don't have any vested interest in you because they don't know you that well. And you just start a field practice and you're okay. Or you got trained at ASHO, but now you're sort of on LA org lines as one of their field people, and you can just start to audit and say, oh yeah, so whoever has you as their stat is okay with it,
Well, I noticed that there's someone in Sydney who got trained in the church and stuff, and then she wanted to audit her brother or something, but the advanced org in Sydney just said no. They were just like, no, you can't audit. And I thought, well, I think she was actually wanting to do it for free or something, or cheaper, but it seemed like maybe they wanted PCs to go to their advanced org. They don't want PCs going to this girl.
Yeah. Well, that was the whole problem in 1982 with the first uprising, was that the orgs thought that the missions and the field people were holding on to PCs. And so that's why they went on a jihad against missions and virtually wiped out the mission network. But the truth of the matter is the missions were a much better format for people. They felt at home. There wasn't an overwhelming number of staff compared to them. You had one guy running a mission who was OT usually, had good ARC, handled people well. He kept good control over the environment. He had maybe 30, 40, 50 people. They were on lines, and you'd have friends, and they were local and so on. So it was very comfortable for people to do. You had good handling. People cared about you personally. And so you get thrown into a big org oftentimes in a different city, and you're just somebody's face that's a stat, and it's really not the same. So people were really resisting going to the upper level orgs. And even when they did, they wanted to go back to the missions and do their courses there because it was local. They knew the people. It felt comfortable there. Mm-hmm. So the church's answer to that was to wipe out all the missions. Yeah. And then they start coming after the field auditors after that. So, that's what happened.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I was going to say something I forgot. I want to ask you a bit about the tech because I've been looking into it recently, about like board tech bulletins, and what's considered standard or not, because I was reading stuff about clay demonstrations, and I had the GAT2 version, then I had like the 1980 version, and then there was the 1970 version, and I could just see how it had been so changed and bastardized. And I spoke to Auditor X, who we interviewed a few weeks ago, who I'm not allowed to say his name, but he told me how in the church they made board tech bulletins a bad thing, and then they could delete that tech from board tech bulletins. And he reckons as well that they changed the classification of some HCOBs into board tech bulletins, and then they could get rid of that board tech bulletin. Like, do you know much about this?
Well, that's all inside baseball. You'd have to have been on staff or been part of that administrative. As a field auditor, I wasn't in the orgs. I knew somewhat about what was going on in the orgs because occasionally I do internships, and of course I end up auditing the staff. So I would get all the war stories from inside the orgs. I could see what was going on.
What would be the war stories, by the way? I'm just interested.
Oh, conflicts, people getting into trouble. All of a sudden somebody disappearing, and they were RPF'd, and then nobody would talk about them anymore, and and people not getting auditing, having case trouble, 2D trouble, people getting together, breaking up, wanting to leave, just garden variety stuff. But, an org is like a small town, everybody knows everybody's business.
So what did you notice about that, though? Did you start to wonder what is going on with the changes?
Well, the changes meaning, what do you mean?
Well, I don't know. Like, were there any problems with changes of the tech that were coming up amongst these sessions you're talking about, or anything to do with that?
No, the biggest problem was no tech. You know, our staff members, they'd have, you know, big thick folders and no bridge progress. You know, they'd get occasional sec check or PTS handlings, or, you know, if it was a training org, you'd get an auditor and they'd audit a few processes on you, and then somebody else would audit something else on you. So you got this big thick folder with no real case progress. And the org staff was supposed to get the biggest problem with what I've noticed with people that have left Scientology is the ones that are the most bitter are the ones that were the most involved and got no tech. And you know, that I think it was a big mistake not to make auditing staff a priority. I mean, of course, you have to train them to do their job so they can function well, and you can't spend all your time auditing, doing your own laundry, so to speak. But so many people join staff, and then they get hammered, they get stressed, and then they never get any auditing. So they end up thinking Scientology is a bunch of nonsense, you know. I mean, you see it a lot.
So, but what do you know about board tech bulletins, though? Were you using board tech bulletins? Were you reading them, or was it like you can't read them?
No, I mean, look, they were. When I got in 1969, there was no tech vols, there was no tech dictionary, there was no transcripts. My friend and I went down to archives and we pulled out one copy of everything that had ever been issued. And put them together in a big binder, and that was our tech vols. And that went up to 1969. And there were some loose papers on the briefing course that had some definitions. That was our tech dictionary. And of course, the tapes had been listened to hundreds of times. And, you know, a lot of times you couldn't make out what LRH was saying on them, but, you know, you mostly got it. And you know, that was the state of it at the time. So, you know, bulletins came out, and we could always tell if something was written by Otto or somebody else. It just didn't sound like LRH, and there was a lot of times there was misemotion in the issue or something. And then they started doing board technical bulletins, and the problem with those is they just weren't expressed very well. They were like the bane of cramming officers. You know, they'd say, first thing they ask you, have you been reading a board technical bulletin? You know, so they didn't have a high reputation at the time. There wasn't any real tech in board tech bulletins. It was just restatements of other things, and a lot of times it was restatements that really didn't clarify anything. It was, you were better off going to the original basics. But even more fundamentally than that, when you're studying the tech, unless you get it to a conceptual understanding, you're going to get thrown off by the words or the phrase or the restatement, or you know, if you get the concept of what you're doing, you don't get thrown off, because that's the basic. You know, it's not the words aren't what you audit. You audit the concepts.
So, no, but what I'm saying is, let's say after GAT1, when you're involved with the church, did you train on anything that was actually saying it's a board tech bulletin?
No, not on Golden Age of Tech 1.
But in the 70s, when you trained on something, did you actually train on something that said board tech bulletin?
Oh yeah, they were in the packs. Oh sure.
So they've been erased from Scientology history in the church.
Oh well, I guess to a certain degree. I mean, I still have all my original packs and everything like that. But I think it was around 78 they started knocking them out. You know, in the original, I don't know. I think in the original tech balls, there's still a bunch of BTBs. If you get the whole original tech balls, not in the later version of the tech balls, they didn't keep them in there.
Yeah.
But there's no, I don't know. You'd have to point out something that's in a BTB that wasn't already broadly covered in LRH's tech, you know, because he laid it all out in the bulletins. And in fact, the basic concepts isn't just that he says it over and over and over and over again. And he says that, it's like when he does a tape, he tells you what he's going to tell you. He tells you, and then he tells you what he told you. So that's how a tape is. That's how a tape is organized. So by the time he repeats the same thing in different ways 6 different times, you go, oh, I get what he's talking about.
All right.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, if someone wanted to contact you, what website do they go to, or how do they reach you?
Well, I have I'm on Facebook. Do you
have a website?
Yeah, I have a website, TreyLotzPART1.com, and it has like a contact email, and you Trey at relaypoint.net. You can always email me or call me. I'm very open to people calling me or contacting me, even just for questions, and things they're interested in. And I've been, I've just been so. I mean, I got into Scientology because of the tech, and I stayed in Scientology because of the tech. I find it like a vein of gold. I never run out of having new cogs and new awarenesses, and so if other people are interested, I'm very interested in talking with them.
Cool. So you're featured on the Association of Professional Independent Scientologists website?
Yeah.
And are you sort of associated with any other groups?
Well, just Facebook groups.
All right.
Scientolopedia, Free and Able, I'm listed on those sites.
What's Free and Able exactly?
Well, that's just I think it was Steve Hall's website. He wanted to put up where people could contact independent practitioners, and that's up there. I don't know that he kept it updated. I haven't looked at it in a while, but mostly it's just word of mouth. I mean, I started a field practice 50 years ago, and it was very interesting because when I started field auditing, I was the only field auditor in Los Angeles. There were no other field auditors in Los Angeles. In fact, there were probably only about 200 Scientologists in Los Angeles, because even though the LA org had been here since 1950, until 1968, it was the only org around. And when Scientologists couldn't get into England in 68, they set up ASHO, and they set up Celebrity Center and AO here. And that was towards the end of 68. So by the time I got here in early 69, besides those, which were just getting off the ground, there was just some old timers that had been around forever. And so somebody knocked on I was living right across from the AO. Somebody knocked on my door and said, can you audit my girlfriend, please? And I said, well, okay. And I'll give you $25 a week, and you can audit her. And I said, okay. So then there was this another girl who heard about it, and she said, well, I can give you $25 a week if you'll audit me too. So so I was a field auditor, and at the time my rent was like $45 a month, and so I was like, I didn't have a car, I didn't have anything really, except I was living in this one studio apartment with $45 a month.
Now, I'm wondering how it works, because I don't know how things are, but wouldn't the church say, hold on a second, you can't charge less than us?
No, that's what the church was charging at the time. Well, but I was auditing, when I got in Scientology, auditing was $25 an hour. In around 1970, around 70, they raised it to $50 an hour. But if you bought 150 hours, it ended up being like $33 an hour.
But you said before, I thought you said $25 a week.
Yeah, well, they were going to pay it on credit. In other words, if I did 10 hours at $50, they owed me $500. They would pay it off at $25 a week. At that time, you could audit on credit. Okay. I thought you meant you were doing $25 just for a week. So how many hours, whatever that is? I thought you were charging real cheap. it was just they didn't have to come up with the money right away, and so I started auditing, and then I got somebody else, and then I got somebody else, but I never knew how I was going to get my next person, because I didn't know anybody in LA. I wasn't from LA, and the only people I knew were the people I was auditing and a few friends and the few Scientologists that were around. But somehow or another, within 2 or 3 years, I started getting really busy, and but I never knew where my next PC was coming from. And what happened was, after about 6, 7 years, I looked back and I'd never had a slow week, and I realized that it didn't matter. I didn't have to know where my next cycle was coming from. As long as I was sitting down and willing to audit, somebody would show up. And then when I did the Basic Auditor series, I said that in a tape, and it really, really knocked me out. And you said, the auditor that has PCs isn't necessarily the good auditor. It's the auditor that's willing to audit. And that resonated with me, because, I'm just, I made a lot of mistakes, and but I was willing to sit down and get in there and pitch with somebody, so people would show up.
All right. I clicked on, but hold on, but with modern, nowadays, right, and it maybe after GAT1, if you couldn't just, you said it was like that back then, but you can't just charge cheaper than the org, can you?
Oh, no, that would be a death knell for a field auditor. There's 2 things you could never do: take PCs from an org that had been on lines within 2 years and charge less than the org. And they knocked out that credit stuff after about 2 years. So after that, it was all had to be paid in advance.
All right. I clicked on a link that was on your website, and I think it was for the Free and Able website. Mm-hmm. And it came up saying I needed a flash download. And I actually clicked it, and it downloaded something, and I think I got a virus from it. So I was thinking maybe OSA were interfering with the website and coming up with bullcrap saying I need to have a flash download, and I could have got a virus.
Well, that's good to know. I like I say, I hadn't been on it for a long time, and it's probably not been kept up. But he put this up about 10 years ago, and I got some inquiries off of it originally.
Well, I think people just need to be careful. I mean, I probably shouldn't have clicked download, but I just thought it seemed legit. But then I clicked on it, and then just a bunch of things loaded, and it was like, whoa, I've actually got some sort of virus from this. Anyway, so you mentioned how you deliver superpower, right?
Yeah.
Would you know much about the Church's superpower?
Well, I got most of my information from Dan Kuhn. He was in the pilot program, and there was a couple other people that were closely monitoring it as it was being developed. And
You're talking about back in the 70s, though, when LRH was around. Okay.
Yeah. And then I guess it went up into the 80s. But like I say, about 5 of the rundowns were finished in finished form and issued as HCOBs. The ethics repair rundown. And then, there's other ones. There's a steady green form, which was actually just a list that had always been around. That was one of the rundowns. But the one that wasn't really, what Dan Kuhn said was the one that really wasn't really developed was this final one, the Perceptics rundown, the one where they built all this stuff at Flag to do this perception rundown. He said originally it had nothing to do with any of that. The only thing he ever heard LRH talk about or saw was just the perceptics of the 56 perceptics, and doing like prep checks and things like that on those perceptics in order to boost up the ability to have independent perception for a Thetan. So on that one, I get into that more because as long as you're working with the perceptics, there's 6 different ways you can take charge off of perceptics. So it's an important subject. Your willingness to be exterior is dependent almost completely on your willingness to perceive independently of the body. or your ability to perceive independently of the body, because people don't want to be out there. They can be out of their body, but they're completely blind. They can't see anything or perceive anything. So they're not happy with that. So if you have an ability to perceive as a being that's better, then you're more willing to be outside of the body and less dependent upon the sense channels of the body. So that's an important rundown. All the rundowns really are kind of standalone. You could do them independently of each other. They don't have to be done. They kind of don't really, I mean, they string together in a way, but in another way, they're not like sequential, like, step A, B, C, D, and then one leads to the other, leads to the other. They're really pretty much all independent of each other. So I've done a lot of the ethics repair rundown by itself on several people, and there's great wins on that. And then you can also do more with the rundowns than, like I was saying, like just for one example on the ethics repair rundown, it's a series of questions. You assess the questions, and the rundown on superpowers, you get a read on, have you applied the wrong condition, and so you two-way com, if you get a read on that, you two-way con to an FN 4 flows on that question. Somebody done that to you, or have you seen another do it? Others done it, done it to yourself. Somebody else did it to you. But anyway, the other thing you can do, you see, is let's say they're talking. I applied wrong condition to my marriage and it fell apart. And you get a blowdown on marriage. Applying the wrong condition to marriage. So there you have a BDF item, and the rule on the L's is that, anything that blows down will blow down more if you pull the string on it. So, you take that and you make a listing annulling question on it, having to do with the marriage breaking up. And you pull the string on that, and the guy gets a lot more out of that question than he ever would out of just two-way comming the locks off of it.
What's the main result that you see in people after they've successfully completed superpower? Why should I do it?
Well, it's kind of a I when you ask that, I always think of Helen Chen. Now I can't attribute this 100% to superpower, because when she came onto my lines back actually about 8 or 9 years ago, she'd done OT8 in the church, and like the church delivers 1/3 of OT8.
Sorry, just out of curiosity, what country is she from?
She's from Taiwan.
And okay, but she's not anything to do with Australia?
Well, no, I don't think so. But
okay.
Well, Helen Chen was like she was a well-known person in the church. She was the one that got Scientology started in Taiwan. All of the groups that are there now have their origin with her. And then she was in India for a couple of years, getting anything. There's not much going on there, but she was there for a couple of years doing that. And anyway, she and her husband left the church back about 2008, 2009, and she had finished OT8. So anyway, I did the other 2 steps of OT8 on her. And now at that time, she had written 2 books, and they were published, and had done pretty well. And then she was out of town a lot, but she would come regularly, and we do we did all 3 L's. And then I did all the superpower rundowns. And on the last rundown, we were doing this perceptic rundown, and she really dug into that. And I got a success story, and then she goes out of town. Now at this point, she's got like 22 books that she's written. She's continuously on media in Asia.
What's her books about?
Her group in Taiwan is called Heartbridge, and she's known as Consultant Chen, who's like a matchmaker. And in that culture, she's not somebody who arranges a marriage, but it's like more like a marriage consultant or somebody that somebody would go to if they would want help in finding a mate. And then she gets people that way, and they get onto her, her lines, her orgs lines, and she's got like 108 staff.
Is that the only indie org in Taiwan, or do you know much about the orgs in Taiwan?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, she's got two orgs there, but one's a branch of the other. But she's got like over 100 staff, and they've been there for ever since everybody left the church.
So if a Taiwanese person wants to do independent Scientology, that's where they'll go to.
Yeah.
What's it called again?
Heartbridge.
Heartbridge.
Yeah, and so anyway, she's just expanded incredibly. Every year is highest ever. And she, all her staff, I've audited a bunch of her staff on L's and OT levels and things like that, and knots. And she makes sure all of her staff gets auditing. They're all happy. They've all been with her. She's like in 10 years, she's lost like 5 or 6 staff, And so it's like.
When did she start this org?
When she left the church about 10 years ago.
Okay. Cool.
It was she'd had a mission, but literally everybody that was on staff stayed loyal to her and left the church. So they all left en masse.
It's very similar to the Israel situation and the South Africa situation. Sorry, I got a bit distracted. But what were you saying about her wins on Superpower?
Well, she really dug into this, particularly in this Perceptics rundown, and she sent me I think of it because she sent me a success story recently about just her incredible increase of her ability to read people and to perceive what's going on with it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Everything good?
Yeah, so I was just, I don't know where we cut out, but I was just telling you about, you asked me how Helen's changed, and through that whole transition there, she just commands a huge space. Her energy level is at least 50% higher than practically anybody else I know. And she, runs 100 people plus, runs 6 businesses, travels around the world. I mean, people say there's no such thing as an OT. I mean, she's an OT. Yeah.
And okay, so you're saying that you noticed in her life she started really acting OT after doing the L's? After doing Superpower?
Well, she was always OT, but, it was bigger, 50% bigger, and see, I find that with being OT, going OT, it's a gradient of operating. It's a gradient of function. It's a gradient of how much you're controlling and how well you're controlling it. And with most people that I audit that are like higher on the bridge, a lot of times what we do is we work on, they'll have things, there's a lot of stuff that gets handled, and then there's always a few bugged areas where they just, they worked on it, or maybe the church hasn't, they've said over and over again, I'd like to work on this, and the church, has put them on something else. So the superpower, it's like a super tailored personal major. It's life. It repairs your life. It was originally designed for lower bridge people who had not had power because they were clear. So it was got like a super life repair on people lower on the bridge. But doing it at any point on the bridge, it really cleans up your PT life. You handle the basic areas of your case with your OT levels, the important things to handle. Once you handle those, there's still all kinds of dynamics and vectors to push forward and to expand and to work on and to get better at. I mean, it's an endless game. There's no real end to it.
When should someone do it on their bridge?
You can do it. I mean, it could be run on anybody after drug rundown. Scientology drug rundown, you could do superpower. But I wouldn't try to do it in an advanced way. I would try to do it in the way that the person could do it at that level.
All right. So do you think that somebody should wait till they're OT3 or something like that and they get more out of it, or is it okay doing it if they're only grade 1?
Yeah, I would say, it's like, I try to go by interest too. Person says, "Oh yeah, I've always heard about superpower. I'd love to do it." Well, that's a high level of interest, and it means it's real to them. It means they would get a lot out of it. And so if they're eligible to do it, you do it, just like with the L's. They say, "Oh, I really always wanted to do the L's." Most people that come onto my lines to do the L's, they've always wanted to do the L's, but they didn't have like $200,000-$300,000 to do it at Flag. So they kind of were just see an opportunity to do it, way less expensively and way more conveniently, and they jump at it, and I just finished a girl on L12 who just a working person. And in fact, half the time she was on L12, she lost a job or got laid off, and she was on unemployment looking for another job. And then she got a job. She didn't have a car. She come over on a bus. I got her through her L12, and she didn't have any money to speak of. I mean, just her weekly income.
I know this is a little bit off topic, but what was Helen's reason for leaving the church? I'm just sort of interested.
I think it was a accumulation of things. She'd had she lives in LA, and her church is in Taiwan, and she always had 15, 18 people here, her staff training at the LA org. And so I think she just saw the changes. She saw her own, anybody who was powerful in the church would get attacked. And so she got attacked, and her husband got attacked. And I think they just had enough.
So just anyone who does successful actions, somebody within a church comes and tries to shut them down with excuses about regulations and stuff?
Yeah, if somebody wants to attack you, they don't really need a reason.
Yeah.
The intention is enough. But mostly it's like being wary of any other power center building up. The scavenge doesn't want any other power centers building up. Zones of influence that are not under his control. So I've talked to a lot of people who've had that. They're doing something really pretty big, and they get nothing but trouble from it.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah. And if the theory that the government took it over and is shutting it down is true, then it would make sense that if the church has been infiltrated, then within it, you'll be getting suppression coming from within it.
Well, I don't know. To me, it's Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is the best. I mean, I think that the simple explanation is the scavenge doesn't want anybody to be more powerful than he is, and so therefore he keeps a lid on everything. I don't know. I think it's just his personality. There's, a suppressive doesn't complete cycles of action. And there's two ways you can not complete a cycle of action. You can overdo it or you can underdo it. And he overdoes everything, overforces, overtrains, over punishes. He does everything too much. Yeah. He can't keep it simple, And then so it all becomes arbitrary, and arbitrary stop flows. And so therefore you get Scientology itself being stopped by so many arbitraries based on a fundamental lack of understanding and lack of grasp of the tech. I mean, to me, that's the simple explanation of the whole thing.
Why should someone become an auditor? Like, personally, with me, I'm at that age now where I've finally ready to actually pick a career, or at least think about it, because when you're 20 years old or when you're 25 years old, I just think there's so much we don't know, and there's so many lies out there that I feel like I'm almost 30 now, but it's like I'm finally now I actually can know enough about how the world works and what's going on. I can start thinking about things. But so becoming an auditor is a good career path, isn't it? Like, you can do it, and you're sort of implying that if you're good at it, you can almost not even advertise, and you can get people. If you just got a website, people can reach you.
Yeah. Well, it's all word of mouth. When I was in the church, 90% of it's word of mouth. I had an ad in, the who, what, where, and I'd get maybe one call a year off that, so it was not much. It's almost entirely word of mouth. The thing about being an auditor is, everybody's got a mind, everybody's got a case. Nobody's case is any different. People want to get better, and the number of people that can actually help bring that about out there is pretty limited. There's always a lot more people that are going to want to get better than there are going to be people that can effectively help them. And also, it's very beneficial to understand the tech and to work with it every day, because you're constantly getting a reality check on your understanding of the tech. Because if you misapply it, you get it in the face like immediately. It comes back at you, and you see you screwed up, and so you correct course and you don't make the mistake again. So a lot of it's living and learning, but eventually you get good at it. What is it? Malcolm Gladwell and studies have said you do anything for 10,000 hours, you become expert at it. So if you do 1,000 hours a year, it takes about 10 years to become expert at it, but it only takes about 2,000 hours to get good at it. And then once you're good at it, you can almost always win. Once you get expert at it, it's very rare to not have a win. And so you can really your ability to understand people and to be able to interact with them effectively gets refined and just gets better over the course of your experience, because you're working with the correct tech. So because you're working with the correct tech of the mind and the spirit and how it works, then the more you apply it and the more feedback you get, the better you get at doing it.
Yeah. Is your wife also an auditor?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really liked about Nikki when I first met her was she was pretty bold. She was like a book one auditor, and she was on this little program where she went in and audited some people in the military, and just this little 5'2" girl, auditing these big guys in the military and their war experiences and stuff like that, and. So yeah, she's very talented. She ended up getting into a different career, so she's not actively auditing now. But she's probably the reason why I can do what I do, because she makes things a lot easier around the house here and supports me in every way. And we support each other, of course. But it makes it possible for me to audit all day.
So you just do it from your house?
Yeah, I've had an office in my house. I've been in the same house for 47 years. So.
And you because of the internet, you got a comm line to the CS, and that's how you do it. That's how you do the auditing. Yeah,
well, I really CS my own stuff, mostly because there aren't really any other upper level CSs that really would be able to do it. There's a couple of people that could do it, but when I first started auditing the L's, I got CS. Every session got CS for like several years, but eventually I got the hang of it. As a Class 8, you're trained to be a CS too. So I would CS my own auditing, and I have some senior CS kind of terminals that if I have a question or a confusion, I can call them up, and Class 12s that I can ask a question to, but they don't want to audit. They don't want to CS full time, or they don't want to CS an auditor's auditing, but they'll answer a question here and there if it's needed.
So what about money, like per hour and stuff? How do you arrange that? Or what do you recommend people to charge?
Well, the policy on it that was never followed in the church was that 2 intensives of auditing should be about what the average monthly earnings are of a particular economic area. Like, so it would be different in different countries. When I was saying back when auditing was $50 an hour, that was about what, the average monthly wage was about $3,000. And so, that would cover 25 hours of auditing. And currently it would probably be around $120 an hour in U.S. terms. That's what I charge. I charge $120 an hour for regular auditing. And for L's and upper level auditing, I charge $200 an hour. And usually it actually ends up being about the same per session because sessions are shorter. A lot of instead of a 45-minute session, it's a 15 or 20-minute session. So
what about someone who's starting out doesn't have experience? What should they charge, or should they actually find someone they know and say, look, I will just order you for free while I'm starting out if you want?
Yeah, it's quantity, quality, viability. You find everybody that's willing to sit down and have you audit them, and you audit them. I mean, some people do it by just getting donations. They say, I'll audit you and you can pay me what you think it's worth. But that's okay for a while. I mean, eventually you have to have a fixed price sort of a regime. But, like I say, first the most important thing is you get the word out, you get some wins. If everybody that you interact with leaves with better indicators than they came in with, then eventually you're going to fill up very quickly because it just always it's inevitable. I've seen it over and over again. Somebody could just sit down and even if they're not that trained, but they're willing to audit. They kind of have good intentions and they'll sit down and pretty soon they got a dozen pieces, because of word of mouth. And the other thing about the money is I don't ever ask for a bunch of money in advance. Like if somebody wants to put something on account, that's fine. And like if they said, well, I'm going to come in for 2 weeks, how many hours, or very often somebody comes in from out of town for a week or two. We'll just do the week or two, and I'll say at the end, well, we did 15 hours and it's this much, so and they'll give me a check and that's it. So. Other people come once a week or a couple times a week and they pay as where they go, and I'm fine with it. So I don't have a big must-have on the money. And I'm never worried about the exchange. People always exchange because they're happy with the service, so it works.
Yeah.
If you get the flow going, the flow will support you.
Yeah. So. Because someone who's starting out, I'm sure they're not going to be as good an auditor as someone who's been doing it for a few years. What sort of, from a PC's point of view, what sort of things might you sacrifice if you go with someone who's new?
Well, I think the range is not going to be great. If somebody just read the Volunteer Minister Handbook and did off the meter all of the things that are in the handbook, well, you could get I used to do Volunteer Minister Handbook stuff. I did 600, 700, 800 hours a year of that back in the 70s. That's everybody needs that stuff. PTS handlings, life and livingness handlings, working out admin scales, setting targets, applying conditions, all those things that make life livable. You always got two vectors. You've got being successful in life and you've got going up the bridge. Being successful in life is kind of a dead end unless you actually get spiritual gain as well. But I've also known people who just concentrate on, going up the bridge and they never get their shit together and they end up old and poor and, not in great shape. Even though they might be in good shape spiritually, they're, it's not a good, the old saying, you can be young and poor, but don't be old and poor.
But let's say you were lower on the bridge and you were gonna try out a sort of newish auditor. Would you be totally fine with that? Would you just be like, yeah?
Yeah, sure. I would think so. I mean, the most important thing is does he like you and do you like him? Don't ever be audited by somebody who doesn't like you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool. And what about if somebody was real keen on making like $300 an hour because they would like to have all the mess objects and stuff. Like, is that a possibility?
To make $300 an hour?
Yeah.
I guess you could charge it. I mean, there's always price points, you could sell 1 million Rolls Royces if you sold them for $5,000,
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
If you sold them for, $10 million, you'd sell one,
Mm.
So, but the thing about money, when I first got into Scientology, I was at a mission. It was a great mission. I really loved it. And the regging was not at all abusive or hard to deal with. But I noticed that around the first of every month, they'd start to, try to sell some intensives because they had to pay the rent. So once I started auditing, what I did was, I never wanted to be in a position where I had to have the money. And that's why I was talking to the guy. So what I did was I saved my money up, and at the beginning of every year, I would pay all my bills for the following year. So I really didn't have any bills for the whole year, and whatever money did come in, whether a lot of it came in at once or for a while nothing much came in, I would just save that up, and then at the beginning of the next year, I would sort of pay everything in advance. So I never had a must-have on the money, and I think that's the only way to really be able to do it, because the primary stable datum, if you're going to be successful as a field auditor, is that your only agenda is helping the guy in front of you.
Yep. Yeah, it's like if you I mean, that's the main goal. You just get good at what you're doing, and then after that you can decide how much you're going to charge and all that sort of stuff. But it's just, you've got to get the first thing in, and it's just get good at it.
Yeah, you have to get your foot in the door. You have to get good at it, and you have to get enough word of mouth and enough contacts going. The ability to confront people, to disseminate, for example, that's all in there. The other nice thing about being a field auditor is you can be an auditor in an org. When I first got in, I was auditor at Hawaii org, and I sat in the room. I went in there at 9 o'clock. I came out at 12, went back in at 1, came out at 6, went in at 7, came out at 9. I never left the room. The PC would leave and they'd send somebody else in. So they'd leave and they'd send somebody else in. I did one thing, and I did it all day, every day. When you're a field auditor, you do a bunch of different things. You're regging, you're DOPing, you're talking to people, you're studying the tech, you're doing all kinds of different variety of things too. You're doing some ethics handlings, or you're doing some marriage counseling, or you're doing some ELS auditing, or you're doing some life repair auditing. It's a good variety. You get a lot more versatile, and you learn a lot more hats. So it's you're more well-rounded as a person rather than just kind of like being a one-trick pony.
Yeah. So when did you notice the prices in the churches going up? Like, didn't it happen in the early 80s when the takeover happened? The prices went right up to crazy levels?
No, it was to me, the high watermark of Scientology was around 1975, 1976. There were so many people, like at Celebrity Center and LA Org. They were like, the place was teeming with people. Everybody could afford the bridge because it was like $50 an hour, So people were buying, hundreds and hundreds of hours of auditing, getting tons and tons of auditing. But what happened was the church went PTS to the IRS. The church, because there started to be this legal threat from the IRS, and what it amounted to was back taxes, interest, penalties, which, if the church lost the case, would have been billions of dollars of fines and costs. And the church at that time, they didn't have, they may have had total worldwide a couple of $1 million in reserves. Nothing. They never could have paid it off. The church would have gone into receivership, and it would literally have fallen into the hands of the government. That would have really been a government takeover. So what LRH decided had to happen is he had to have enough reserves so that if we lost the case, he could pay it off and still retain control of Scientology. And that's when, in '76, they started raising the prices, 10% a month, 10% a month, 10% a month. And then in '82, that was also with the finance police, and that was also a way to shovel in piles of money so that they would have huge reserves in order to pay off the IRS if they lost the case. So that stressed the entire operation. Back in the early 80s when auditing was like $5,000 an intensive, I didn't sell any intensives. I was just doing, volunteer minister handlings. Is the only way I was, keeping going.
So you noticed it was the early 80s when it got to be really expensive?
Well, by that time, it could have been going up every month.
And so, and it totally affected your business.
Oh, it affected everybody's business. It affected the org's business. Well, they see, like ASHO, they had hundreds of thousands of hours of undelivered intensives that had been paid for by the time. But so even though they were still auditing quite a lot, even though they weren't really selling any new auditing, because everybody had thousands of hours of auditing on account already, So that's really kind of what was happening there. And they also wanted to clean up the backlog and get these undelivered hours paid for, or delivered that people had paid for.
So it was really 5,000 in intensive, like in when, 83 or 85 or what?
I forget when it. Then they dropped it back to 3,500 in intensive. I forget when that was. Maybe 84, 85.
That's really expensive.
Well, and that's what it is today. It's about $156 an hour.
Yeah, but that's a lot less than 5,000 per intensive.
Well, yeah, but see, that's at LA org level. Then like at ASHO level was 10% higher than that. AO was 10% higher than that, and FLAG was 20% on top of that.
Colin, can you explain me the ASHO thing just quickly? What's the difference between ASHO and the advanced org?
Well, ASHO is the briefing course. American St. Hill Organization is the briefing course and power, and AO was OT levels.
Are they in the same building?
In LA? No, they're all in different buildings.
But are they right next to each other in LA?
Yeah, they're right on L. Ron Hubbard Way. ASHO, LA org, and the advanced org are all on the same block. And Celebrity Center's a couple of blocks away.
What about in Australia, for example? Do we have an ASHO in Australia? Do you know of that?
I don't know. There's an ASHO in Denmark. There's an ASHO, of course, at St. Hill.
Because it seems like they're putting them inside the AOs. Is that right?
You know what? My feeling about the church is I have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
They could be doing that. I don't track with it. I don't get the data. It's been 12 years, and I was like, what are they doing over there? I have no idea.
What about when because they charge a lot for the L rundowns, don't they? When did they decide that L rundowns were going to be so expensive?
Well, that was part of the whole soak the rich policy to make millions and millions of dollars a week for FLAG, and that all went into Sea Org reserves, and so it literally cost people $200,000 to $300,000 to do the L's. To do L11, even today, you have to buy 3 intensives of setups. That's like about $18,000. You have to buy 2 intensives, which is $25,000. So you're already into it, $33,000. L11, they deliver it normally in under an intensive. You get the setups are like maybe 4, 5, 6 hours, and then L11 is maybe 8 hours, 9 hours. Could be more, could be less. Everybody's different, but it's certainly not 25 hours usually. So you get 15 hours of auditing, 16 hours of auditing, and you spend $33,000. So that's
is that if they do it through you?
No. They always do it. They only did it at FLAG.
Okay, so these days, if they want to do it at FLAG, it would be like maybe $30,000 or something.
Well, that's just for L11, yeah. And if you have hours left over, it doesn't matter because they sweep the board. Now if you want to get L12, now you got to buy 4 intensives. That's
how do they justify sweeping the board? Since when did they ever do that with auditing?
I don't know. I mean, I guess you could ask them the question. How else have you justified that? But
yeah. So what about with you? If someone wanted to do the same L11, how much would that cost them?
With me, well, like I said, it's $200 an hour. So you can get all your setups plus the L's for maybe $2,500. Most people that I do the L's on average with setups and the L's average and intensive 12.5 hours. So it's $200 an hour. So it's $2,500 around that. Could be 15 hours or 18 hours. Could be 6 hours. I've had people do it in a few hours. And just because they blew through it really quickly.
So what were you? What are you sure that that figure was a good estimate of $30,000 in the church?
More than that, yeah.
So there's that going off how much per hour?
Well, it's going off $1,000 an hour, but you have to buy 25 hours, and it doesn't matter how many you use. So if you use half that amount, you pay double the amount per hour because they don't give you the other hours back.
That's crazy. It's just so. But I know they were charging that in the 90s. But do you think they're still charging $1,000 an hour?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% sure of that.
Wow, that's just like their premier product, the L's.
Well, it is, and the only people that can afford it are if you've got a professional practice, if you're a dentist or a doctor, or you own your own business, and it's a fairly affluent business, you can do the L. So it's a very much of an elitist thing, in Scientology. But your average guy, I mean, no way would ever be able to do the L's.
Yeah. You got me a bit excited about them. They sound pretty cool, and I just can't believe how affordable they are. But with someone like you, because I know you're pretty busy, how could, is there a waiting list of people?
Well, not really. I try not to have more than 1 or 2 out-of-town people or out-of-country people, and at the same time, because they come over, I usually start auditing around 1 o'clock or so, and so some people come over around 1 o'clock. I'll get them in 2 or 3 times during the day, do like a round robin on the out-of-town PCs, So in a typical day, I have 10, 11, the other day I had 14 people, different people, and then several people I do multiple sessions on. So I hit my all-time record. I did 21 sessions there the other day. It was a long day.
Cool. And you're coming up to 50 years being in a chair?
Yeah. Well, cool. It is 50 years now, right? Yeah. In fact, it's I did my first sessions in the beginning of 1969. So it's been 50 years.
Cool. So you mentioned about LRH's voice on the tapes earlier.
Yeah.
Right. I found out something interesting recently, which was about a person impersonating LRH and changing the tapes in the church. Do you know much about this?
Well, there were some tapes. Well, they were always edited, right from the get-go, because it's in policy, and LRH says, and I expect that you'll edit out any hums and haws, or if he coughs or he misspeaks or something like that. He expected that they would smooth it out and issue it that way. It wasn't the raw, uncut tape, but it wasn't going to omit anything. Now, later on, they started omitting paragraphs if LRH was talking about something that would be that people have used. I could say if people have used this piece of data to sort of make current management wrong oftentimes it ends up disappearing out of the tapes.
Wow. What would be an example of that?
Well, I think like on the Philadelphia Doctor tapes, there's some, you can look it up on the internet. There have been people who've done, comparisons between the different editions of the doctorate tapes. And I'm not sure if this one is in there or not, but I know in one of the doctor tapes he talks about, he said something to the effect like, he says, I'm the first person to tell you that some of my opinions are outrageous. And he says, and you have no duty or obligation to believe my opinions or follow my opinions. He says, but the tech is the tech, and you do have to follow the tech. And, so he differentiates between, everything he says has to be gospel and believed by everybody and followed by everybody to, the basic principle is if I tell you this is the way you audit, then you're supposed to audit according to these basics. That's not his opinions or his ideas or his thinking. It's just what works. So now people could use that to say, well, I don't have to believe what LRH says, about psychiatrists or about this or that. And, so maybe they might take that out, or they might take out something that says, Scientology in the wrong hands can be used destructively. And, if it gets into the wrong hands, it could be just create an environment just as suppressive as any suppressive environment that's ever existed, and, they might take that out because, somebody might say, see, already says it's dangerous,
Yeah, this is PDC Lecture 21, right?
Yeah.
It's been modified, yeah. So, but are you aware of any instances of a voice actor actually saying stuff and pretending to be L. Ron Hubbard?
Not on any actual issued tapes, but there was the New Year's tape in 1982 when that rebellion was occurring, was really put together and not very well. I think people have said that this was a message to the public. He would always do a New Year's tape. So it wasn't really a tech tape, but it was a sort of a message where he said, oh, these guys are doing a great job and I'm fully behind them. Because a lot of people were thinking, geez, if LRH only knew all of this nonsense that was going on, he'd step in and do something about it.
So what is this, Ron's Journal 83 or 84?
3, I think. I'm not
Can it be
sure.
found online?
I'm sorry?
Where can it be found?
I don't know. I just remember at the time I was at a New Year's event and I heard it and I went, yeah, it sounds weird. It sounded put together. It sounded like it went through some sort of a voice. I don't know. It didn't sound like him.
Really?
Yeah.
What did it say?
It sounded like him, but it didn't sound like he recorded it. It sounded like they'd taken a word here and a word there and put them together in a sentence to say something that he would never have said.
No way. So do you reckon they didn't use a voice actor, but they just cut and spliced sound bits?
Yeah. That's what it sounded like to me. And I think people have commented on that who were kind of behind the scenes at the time, that they scrambled around to get this tape put together so they would calm the field down because everybody was getting antsy about the finance police and all that.
Why do you think L. Ron Hubbard didn't just make a New Year's address?
Well, it's a good question. I don't know really. When he went off the line, and he had all these lawsuits. They were trying to chase him around. He went off in his Winnebago with Pat Broker and Annie Broker, and writing the books, and he traveling around and so on. His only comment with the church really was through Miscavige and the All Clear unit. And when all of this revolution was going on with the mission holders meeting and everything like that, LRH, the only data he was getting was data through Miscavige and through the establishment of the church. So I don't think he was really getting what was going on. That was his only comment because he was traveling around. They didn't have internet at that time. It was just telexes and things like that.
Yeah.
So they were probably giving him data that would make him think, well, I support what they're doing. They're trying to get these guys in line and do X, Y, Z, and there's some rebellion, and they have to put the rebellion. I don't know. He probably bought into it, but it obviously very altered data.
What was the data of the actual lecture? I mean, the announcement or the whatever it was.
But just that he thought they were doing a fine job, and that the people that were rebels were bad, and Miscavige was good. Everybody else was bad. I don't know. Really?
Wow.
It was disappointing. I remember that was my reaction as well. It was very disappointing because what's going on is so, en theta, that to say it's all great is just really disappointing.
And what were some of the things that were en theta?
Well, the finance police, the declares of mission holders, the mission holders meetings, and people in the instant declares, and going in and sweeping bank accounts and pulling, huge fines and pulling money out of people's bank accounts that were mission holders and things like that. You were literally driving people out of these missions that they had built, and just confiscating all the money and all the reserves that they had in their bank accounts.
Yep.
All right, so that was part 1 with Trey Lotz. I hope you liked it. We continue next episode. I'm still distracted by Donnie Darko. Maybe I need to just watch it again and just get that auditing. I need to get that movie flat. Like, seriously, I mean, I've learned so much from doing Scientology and objectives. Like, I mean, when I do yoga, it's like I'll hold a pose and it'll bite, and then I'll have to get it flat. And you literally get yourself, at the moment, because I've done so much yoga now, I've gotten my body flat, like on a lot of things. But yeah, I mean, I think it's similar with songs. Like, if a song really gets your case going, you need to get flat on that. I heard a Scientologist say that once in a book that he wrote. He said about movies and songs how you use them to get flat on things. Like, if it's a movie that's like setting you off case-wise and that, and you got to watch it. And he mentioned Total Recall, and I was like, yeah, Total Recall, because I'm totally into Total Recall. And I think he mentioned watching it a few times to go flat on it. But it's just some things, they stir up something in your case, and you need to just watch them a few times until it just gets out of your system or whatever. I don't know if I'm going to bother watching it again, but anyway, I think it'll help me on my journey to confronting truth and looking at it and the whole existence and everything. And one time when I had a funky spiritual experience, it was actually just before I said I had that experience where I could have separated from my bank or this universe. It was a similar time as that, and similar time to that. And I almost feel like what I experienced was like the Donnie Darko movie, but like compressed into 1 minute or something, like the whole movie. Because in the movie, he has like time, funky things with time, and then in the end, it's like he zips back through the whole. It could be an implant, I could be experiencing like an implant. I could have accidentally ran out of an implant or something. But in the movie, towards the end, he goes back in time, whatever, and so it flips through all the things that had happened in the movie. And it's like he's looking at his existence again and flipping through it. It sounds a little bit like the Between Lives area implant, but he's flipping, like you see the images of what happened, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I experienced a similar thing to that, where it was like, I flipped through and reviewed my life, and it was like, whoa. But it wasn't. I know L. Ron Hubbard talked about like a life review, and he said something like, it isn't actually your life that you're reviewing or something. And he said that in it, he said something about like, you don't see personal pictures, you just see like generic pictures and you think it's your life or something. Anyway, whatever I reviewed, that was freaking more my life for sure. It was like, and I don't even know if I reviewed it, but it was like my existence or something, but it was kind of like the movie. It was kind of like a Donnie Darko movie, but except imagine if I was the main character in Donnie Darko, and I watched that whole movie quickly and compressed it into like 1 minute. It was kind of like what I experienced. Anyway, stuff's wild, but anyway, I think you should help me to confront the truth. So it's now time for us to end off the show because you are involved, remember? No, it's time for me to end off the show. But before I end off, I've got to end off with a quote, okay? And this episode's been fairly funky, actually. I think it makes up for the... I don't think there was too much funky in the interview. So I think that the intro and the outro to the show and stuff, I mean, that's making up. The funkiness of that is making up for the lack of funkiness during the interview. All right. This is from Dynetics55, and it says, the physical universe is a sort of hypnotic trance where the individual believes himself to be capable of viewing from various points. The illusion is rendered very excellent by the fact that other individuals believe that they are viewing the same things from the same points as they occupy. We are all, as awareness of awareness units, basically different. We are not the same pool of life, and we are all evidently differently endowed, no matter what the Communist Party would like to believe. So, that's LRH. He's just slipping into like a little an attack on communism, while making some real deep statements about reality. Anyway, I don't think there's much I want to say about that quote. I don't know. It's pretty deep. I mean, you have to just really look into that and analyze that and stuff. Really think with it. But, yeah. If this is a computer game Matrix, then it is like a hypnotic trance, because you're like when the hypnotist is distracting the person with the clock swinging up and back, the watch or whatever swinging up and back, and it's putting the person to sleep or whatever. This universe, this electronic universe we're in, we're watching the cars go up and back, watching the birds fly. We're distracted constantly by this 3D matrix. And probably spiritually it is full-blown got us asleep because we're just stuck in this dream and that's it. So it's like a hypnotic trance. Anyway, that's it for today's show. It's time for you to climb back out of this rabbit hole, out of this interesting Scientology world. Thanks for listening. I've been your host, Andy Notch, the Space Cowboy. You have been listening to the Indie Scientology podcast. And remember, what you thought was impossible is possible.